Hi there. Today we're going to read chapter 5 of The Keeping Room by Anna Myers. And each chapter begins with this short little letter that Joseph sends to his father. And it begins like this: Dear Father, I am to be among the men who surrender our town to the British. Are you disappointed in me? Know that I have not really given up. I have your pistol. A time may yet come for me to strike against them. The next morning, Isaac Kent is in charge of the group of men who meet to walk just outside of town where they will wait for the oncoming army. Yuvin and I approach the group before they are all gathered, and he tells the others that we wish to join them. Mr. Kent studies me. This is not the time for crying, he says, or for any other boyish nonsense. I nod my head. Young Joseph Kershaw is more than just a boy, says Yuvin. You will be beside him? Asks the baker. Yuvin promises to keep an eye on me, and they agree that we may join them. No one talks as we move down the street. Yesterday's sun has dried most of the mud to hard lumps of sand. Mostly, I keep my eyes on the prints left by the shoes of men who walk before me. Just a few feet past the last small dwelling, Isaac Kent raises his arm. Here, he calls, spread in a line across the road. Yuvin and I end up in the middle of the line, with me beside Reverend Fielding, who holds the flag. We are quiet, and the sun shines warm upon my head and shoulders. Yuvin has turned to look back at the little house. Hannah lives there, he whispers, with her mother and younger brother. I too glance back. There's a face at one of the windows. Then we catch the first strains of music. Just as I had imagined so many times, we hear them before they come into view. The pounding of their feet and the music of their drums and fifes grow louder and louder as they come. They gave no heed to the truce flag in the battle, I murmur to Yuvin. Cut him to pieces who held it. My whisper must have been heard by the minister. He shifts the flag, which was attached to a broomstick, from one hand to the other. But they were soldiers. We are civilians. They will not harm us. He speaks loudly to the group in general, then drops his voice. It is unclear whether he now speaks only to himself or to me, but I strain to hear his words. My best made the flag, hemmed it nice. I study the flag, made from sparkling white material, made large too, so the British could not fail to see it. I wonder if the minister thinks the British will be impressed by a well-hemmed flag. But how could I know? Maybe they will be. I say nothing, only try hard to smile at Reverend Fielding, who pats me on the shoulder. Just then they come in sight at the top of the hill. At first there is only one line, even with a row of small pine trees. The green, however, does not move, while the red comes on and on. Only the minister speaks. Dear God, he cries. I stare, mesmerized by the scarlet procession that moves over the hill in the blazing sunlight. On and on they come. I feel certain they will march over our group of men, trampling the carefully made flag beneath their great boots. On they will go until the whole of Camden is covered by red. The drumbeat drills into my very bone. Reverend Fielding steps forward with the flag. The broom handle shakes in his hands, but I do not fault him for his fear. I think that I too am shaking, but I am unsure of almost everything except the line of soldiers about to engulf us. As in a dream, nothing seems quite real. A soldier with much gold braid upon his uniform steps forward and takes the flag from Reverend Fielding, who bows slightly and moves quickly back to be among us. I accept you all as prisoners of war for His Majesty King George. You will now answer to the direction of Lord Cornwallis. His words are almost sung, clear and loud enough to carry, I think, across our small town. For a second, I think the soldier is Cornwallis, but just as I realize Lord Cornwallis would not walk, a great white horse comes snorting to the front. The rider sits tall in the saddle. His wig is as white as the horse, and his red coat is more decorated than any of the others. A bugle blasts, and another soldier steps forward. There is a sheet in his hand, and in the same sing-song voice as the former one, but not as loud, he begins to read. All cattle and other livestock are hereby to be rendered as property of His Majesty's army. All businesses will be run under military direction. The property of one Joseph Kershaw, traitor to the crown, is hereby seized. The voice goes on, but the words are lost to my ear. Property. They will take the mills, the flour mill and the sawmill, the store and the house. Our house. Slowly, hoping not to be noticed, I inch back. When I am behind the line of townsmen, line of townsmen, I turn and run. It is possible, I know, that I will be ordered to halt. I do not even listen. Let them shoot me if they will, but I will run until a musket ball knocks me down. I must warn my mother. My mind moves as fast as my feet over the grass of the town, past the square where my father drilled his militiamen, away from the scattered homes and places of trade, across our green and up the little hill to home. In my mind's eye, I see the British. They shove my mother and treat her like a slave. I see one with his bayonet ready to run through my little brother because he spills a mug of ale he is ordered to carry. I cannot bear to imagine more and shake my head. Stop these awful thoughts, I scream to myself. You must think clearly. Of course, they have been watching. Mother and Cato wait for me on the porch. With my last shred of energy, I thrust myself up the stairs and into my mother's arm. They are coming here to take our house, I gasp. My mother pays no heed to my words. Instead, she makes soft, soothing sounds and wipes my face with her linen handkerchief. Be calm, Joey, be calm. I've expected this. Of course, Cornwallis is coming here. She motions toward town. Where else do you suppose he would find quarters to his liking? We will be calm, Joey, and face them together. She motions again, and this time I turn and look in the direction she has pointed. As if I've pulled them behind me, the great line of red moves through the town and up the hill. Within minutes, the British Army will claim our home as theirs. I move to the porch rail and lean upon it, staring at the red line moving like a snake to shoot its poison into our waiting bodies. Bring the other houseworkers, my mother says in a steady voice to Cato, and the children. I want my children with me. The others must have been watching through the window in the entry hall because Cato is back with them at once. Jerusalem carries baby Rebecca and leads Sarah by the hand. George holds onto Mary's skirt. Mother takes the baby in one arm and puts the other around Sarah's shoulders. George runs to me and wraps his arm around my waist. Mary steps determinedly to be next to Mother. There is fire in her eyes. My sister's bravery shames me, and I pull in a deep breath. Stand tall. I remember Father's words to me, and I make myself as tall as possible. The servants are gathered behind us. I hear Biddy and Tilda muttering prayers beneath their breaths. Will they eat us? Asks Sarah. Certainly not, says my mother. Human beings do not eat one another. I know, of course, that she does not speak the exact truth. I have heard of cannibals, and I have heard of British cruelty. Being eaten might not be the worst thing that befalls us. I bend and lift Sarah into my arms. Mary reaches back to pat Sarah's leg. If they eat me, she says, they shall find me tough indeed. She folds her arms across her chest. In fact, Lord Cornwallis himself might just break a tooth if he bites into the likes of me. She laughs. Sarah and George have both crossed their arms in imitation of Mary. The soldiers are on our green now, and I see that there are not as many as marched into town. The others, I am sure, have been assigned business elsewhere. The same officer who spoke earlier steps forward. By the order of Lord Cornwallis, I claim this house as property of King George III and declare it to be used as headquarters to Lord Cornwallis and His Majesty's troops. Mother makes ready by stepping forward as if to say something, but the soldiers pay her no mind. A group of them move up the steps and head for the door. Only by stepping aside do we avoid being knocked down. We huddle there, watching until one soldier stops, sticks his musket, and motions. Inside, he barks. Their heavy boots stomp across our polished floors. Mother drops to her knees and touches one of the great scars cut into the shine. I too stare at the scars and know with a terrible certainty that our lives will be similarly marred. And so our splendid new home passes from our hands to the hands of the enemy. The soldier who motions us in pulls at my mother's arm. In there, he says, and he herds our family into the parlor where we are left with a Captain Harkins. He seems to have been placed in charge of the rebel family, which is what we are called. He is a young soldier, about Youven's age, I think. The captain speaks in a formal tone, all business, but it seems to me there is a surprising kindness in his eyes. Of course, his kindness makes no difference. He is our jailer. Our home has become our prison. A great hatred burns inside me for Captain Harkins and all other redcoats. My mother interrupts him as he speaks of how we will be always watched. May we know what has become of my husband, Colonel Kershaw, she asks coldly. She has refused his offer of a seat and still holds the baby. The rest of us crowd around her. He is a prisoner, madam, being brought this day to Camden Jail. Injured? My mother's voice is a little more than a whisper. No, God be praised. She sinks to the sofa. For a moment, I think tears of relief will fall, but then she pulls herself together. What will become of him? The captain looks down briefly at his boots. He will be given the opportunity to repent of his rebellion and join His Majesty's forces. It is Mary standing beside me who speaks first. He won't. You can just bet your red coat he won't. Mother shakes her head in an effort to stop Mary, but my sister stomps her patent leather shoe against the parlor floor. Captain Harkins stares at Mary, who boldly meets his gaze. A bit of a smile plays about the captain's lips. I think he admires Mary's determination. He is about to speak when another soldier speaks up. Well then, little miss, says another officer who has just entered the room, we shall have the pleasure of hanging your loving father. He pauses then and flashes a vile grin at my sister. And you, my dear, shall have a special place of observation. Let me deal with the family, please, Keegan, says Captain Harkins, and he frowns at the other soldier. As you wish, as you wish. Keegan turns to walk away, but over his shoulder he adds, only why not let them see how it is from the start off? I watch his red form move through the door, and I repeat his name to myself. I think we shall see Keegan again, and the meeting will not be pleasant. Sarah and George begin to whimper, and Mary leads them over to the pianoforte. She wipes at their tears with the handkerchief and whispers to them in soothing tones. May I see my husband? My mother asks. Not likely, madam. The captain looks down again at the floor. My mother's body stiffens, but she lets go no cry. Instead, she stands. Where are we to be quartered? I need a place to put this sleeping child. Baby Rebecca has indeed fallen asleep in my mother's arms. I'm glad that she at least is spared the anxiety of understanding our circumstance. Captain Harkins leads us upstairs to my room, which was selected because it contains two large beds. Mother and Mary are told to bring clothing and other needed personal items from the other rooms. Captain Harkins steps out of the doorway to let them pass. I guide Sarah and George to the window. Watch the soldiers and tell me what they do, I say, hoping a job will keep them from crying. Across the room is a large chest made of shiny walnut. I go there thinking to remove things from some drawers so there will be room for what Mary and Mother bring. Instead, I find myself leaning against the chest just as Captain Harkins leans against the doorframe. He is looking at baby Rebecca, who sleeps on the bed. There is a soft, longing look on his face. He moves a step toward her. For a minute, I think he might touch her. I am ready to protest, but he only gazes down at her and smiles. Boy or girl? Girl. I think he is about to say more, but he doesn't. I decide to ask some questions while Mother is not present. Are we to be kept here then, always prisoners in this room? Oh, I think you might walk about a bit at times if you are careful to mind your mouth and stay out of the way. There are those among us who would not hesitate to run you through with a bayonet. He glances down for a moment, then goes on. Your little sister seems a bit too bold for her own good. I feel ashamed that he does not caution me against being bold. His seeming concern for our safety does not soften my feeling toward him, but it does encourage me to ask another question. Will my father truly be hanged? I ask, and my every muscle tightens as I wait for the answer. You think he will not join us? I issued a disgusted snort and shake my head with certainty. It is not my place or Keegan's to say what punishment will befall him, he sighs. Hanging is a large possibility. I glance quickly at Sarah and George, who are still at their post. They do not seem to have listened to our conversation. Joey, calls George, come see what the redcoats are building. What is it? I move to the window, but I cannot answer my little brother's question. They are in our side garden among the honeysuckle bushes. The soldiers are erecting a rough platform with a trap door. I'm sure the wood is from my father's sawmill, and I'm sure they're using that wood to build a gallows. I don't know what they build, I say when I am able to speak. Likely some sort of housing. Not all those men can sleep in this house. I pull the broad brocaded curtains close, take a hand of each child, and lead them away. Why not look at storybooks? I take two from George's shelf. Sarah does not open her book. I'm hungry, Joey, she says, and she rubs her tummy. May I go for food? I ask, and Captain Harkin nods. Mother and Mary are back before I leave the room. They're building a gallows in the side garden, I whisper to Mary as I pass her, and I am ashamed that I am too frightened to keep the news to myself. For a moment, her face twists with fright. Our father will not be hanged, she says. The redcoats will not so easily defeat Joseph Kershaw. She squeezes my hand, and courage seems to pass through her fingers to mine. I pull myself up tall again and remember that I am my father's son. Downstairs, I peer cautiously into the dining room. Soldiers, all gold braided officers, sit around my mother's fine mahogany table. One heavy man with a dark beard leans back so that his chair balances on the back legs. I wonder that the legs have not broken. Our best pewter mugs are in the men's hands, and from the smell, I know they are drinking my father's rum. Then I catch a sight that almost makes me cry out. Two men stand just back of the table. They are throwing darts and the target is my father's portrait, which hangs above the mantel. Like hot water, anger rushes through me. My mouth opens to shout a protest, but I clamp my hand over it. What good would my words do? I pull myself back and head toward the keeping room stairs. You have a gun, I whisper to myself. A day will come when you can make at least one redcoat pay. My favorite room is different now because it is full of soldiers. Some are eating, some poke about in the supplies, some play cards at the table where Yuvan and I studied. Even the smell I love has changed. Now the odor of boot leather and sweaty bodies overpowers that of spices and teas. Only the woodbox is unchanged. It sits as always beside the hearth. The pistol waits for me still beneath the firewood. I stand quietly staring at the box. The time will tell, I tell myself, when I throw out the logs, seize the gun, and use it. The time will come when I strike against the evil British thieves who mock my father with their darts. Biddy is at her work table. Like the rest of us, she is frightened. She kneads the bread with nervous jerks, and her eyes dart about the room constantly. I wish to say something that will comfort her, but the best I can offer is a weak smile. Her fear has not made her forget us. On the table is a basket of cold meat and bread. There are also tin cups. Here, she whispers, and she lifts for a second the cloth that covers a crock. I done hid this away from the morning milking. Just now brings it up from the cellar. She glances at the soldiers. They got no business guzzling it down. She sets the crock in another basket. You tell the mistress not to worry about food. Biddy has ways. Thank you, I say, and take a basket in each hand. Don't you fret either, little master. Them redbirds might perch here a bit, but they is gonna fly away. Yes, just redbirds. I will remember to tell George and Sarah to think of the soldiers as redbirds. Staying close to the wall and keeping my head down, I move quickly back upstairs. Mother wakes little Rebecca, breaks the bread for her, and tears the meat into tiny pieces for the other children. Eat, children, she urges. We must keep our bodies strong. I remember the soldiers rummaging through our provisions and wonder how long there will be food to keep up our strength, even with Biddy's hiding. But I have other worries. Outside my window, the hammering continues. Who will be hanged in our side garden? The pounding, I realize, now seems to surround the house. I go to the window. Dozens of English soldiers labor on the grass below. They dig holes for huge poles that take 3 men to raise. Some men are busy nailing up support timbers. A great stockade type fence is going up. I hate the ugly wall that shuts us off from the rest of the world. We will tear it down, I say aloud. When they are gone, the fence will come down. In the back of my mind, I wonder how many Kershaws will be left alive when this war is over. I turn back to the room. My mother sits with the children on the bed. George's eyes are big with fear. Even little Sarah is absolutely still, except that she sucks at her thumb, a habit she gave up last year. Only the baby, who plays with the empty tin cups, is happy. It is soon evident why the British are building a stockade. Mary and I are at the front window when we see the first of them coming across the green and up the hill toward our house. They are staggering, bleeding American prisoners. It seems they will surely fall, but somehow the unsteady line moves forward, prodded by muskets, bayonets, and curses from the mouths of the redcoats. Oh, says Mary, oh no. Mother, followed by George and Sarah, are beside us then. She presses her fist to her mouth as if to hold back a scream. We watch silently, each of us, I know, is thinking of father. Our eyes strain for a good look at every soldier. They are all broken, even the ones without the crude bandages on their head or limbs. Their faces tell the story of a battle lost and of watching friends die. They keep coming and coming. I feel as if the men of fighting age in the Carolinas are being herded into a prison made from our yard. It is George who spots the figure first, and he points. The soldier is near the top of the hill. He is tall. Like father, his hair is mostly gray. His movements, too, seem familiar. Only the stooped shoulders do not fit. But then, do they not all look beaten? Mary grips tightly to my arm. Mother's lips move, and I know she is praying. I am the first to realize, and I call out, "He is not father." "Oh," Mother whispers. "Oh, dear God, help us." I am uncertain as to whether she is relieved or disappointed that the man walking toward us is not the master of this house. I am even unsure how I feel, but I know I should do something to ease my mother's strain. "Sit down," I say to her. "It's too hard to watch." They are so sad. Her eyes are dry, but there is great anguish in her voice. We are all so sad. She leads George and Sarah back to bed. "Call me," she says. "Call me if—" "I will," I promise. I do not move from my post. Mary stands with me. Finally, just when the sun is almost down, the last downtrodden soldier is driven into our garden. Still we watch. A large barrel is rolled into view by two redcoats. Another brings four large dippers. The barrel is opened and the men line up for drinks. The first soldier is bent and wrinkled with age. I wonder why a man so old has gone to fight. He grabs the cup and swallows the drink in one gulp. When he moves to dip again, a redcoat snatches away the dipper and shoves an old man down onto the grass. A younger prisoner behind him bends to help the older one up. Then he turns back for his drink, but the same redcoat pushes him on without a drop of water. The American looks at the Englishman, and for a moment I think he will strike back. Then another Englishman steps around the first and hands a cup of water to the American, who drinks it and moves on. "Maybe they're not all bad," Mary says softly. I shake my head. "Don't count on it. Don't you ever trust any of them, not one of the king's henchmen." When twilight finally comes, someone in the yard below us begins to play a fiddle. We do not know where the instrument comes from. Neither Mary nor I saw a soldier carry one, but from the music we know the fiddler is an American. "They are brave, children," my mother says. "The soldiers are beaten, but they are brave. Listen to the music." We are quiet. When the tune changes, Mother smiles. It's a song my mother used to sing. She goes to the window, leans on the sill, and begins to sing. "Oh, Johnny dear has gone away. He's gone far away across the bay. Oh, my heart is sad and weary today. Johnny has gone for a soldier. Shula, 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 aga. Time can only heal my woe. Since the lad of my heart from me did go, oh, Johnny has gone for a soldier." Her voice is strong but gentle at the same time. Her fair hair is let down, and the rays of the moon light her outline against the window. I think that to the suffering men below she must appear as an angel. At the chorus she sings a line in Gaelic, the language she spoke as a small child before her family came to America. When the song is over, the men clap and shout their thanks. Mother does not sing again, but she seems less nervous now. "We must be soldiers now too," she tells us. With very few breaks, the haunting fiddle music continues long into the night. The fog of sleep wraps around me, but I am still aware of the music and of the soldiers that fill our back garden. Neither do I forget the gallows that stand waiting in the moonlight among the honeysuckle.